The afternoon was cold and crisp, with snow gently falling from a pale sky. A picturesque suburban neighborhood lay still under a thick, powdery blanket, each house standing quiet and serene. The only sound breaking the silence was the crunch of boots in the snow as a young boy made his way down the street. At just 12 years old, he wore a determined look on his face, his breath clouding in the chilly air. Bundled up in layers of warm clothing, he was used to these harsh winter afternoons. Every step he took was a careful calculation, avoiding the slick spots on the sidewalk and making sure he didn't trip on the deep layers of snow. He wasn't just a student. He was a hard-working boy with dreams far beyond what life had handed him. His family didn't have much, but they had each other, and he made sure to help them however he could. He dreamed of a better future, even if he couldn't quite picture how he would get there. The weight of those dreams felt heavy as he made his way home, but today, something was going to change. As he passed a large, luxurious mansion on the corner, the boy's attention was drawn to a sound, a faint cry, barely audible over the hum of the wind. At first, he wasn't sure where it was coming from, but the urgency in the noise had him looking around. His eyes scanned the area. That's when he saw it. A luxury car, its wheels buried in a snowdrift, the engine running, but the car stuck. A woman was inside, frantically trying to free herself and her baby from the snow-packed car. Her hands were shaking as she struggled to clear the snow, the panic in her eyes obvious. The baby's cries grew louder, now tinged with desperation. The boy stopped, his breath catching in his throat. There was something so wrong about the situation. It wasn't just the snow. Something else was happening here. The woman seemed overwhelmed, unable to do anything to help herself or her baby. The boy looked around, realizing there was no one in sight to help. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. He didn't have time to waste. He didn't think. He acted. His legs carried him toward the car before he even had the chance to process the situation. The snow crunched beneath his boots as he approached, his heart racing, but his mind clear. The baby's cries were louder now, almost frantic, and he could feel the urgency in the air. He pulled open the car door with a sudden force, surprising the woman inside. She looked up at him, startled, her face pale with panic. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The boy's eyes locked onto the baby, who was still crying, small and fragile in the woman's arms. His gaze shifted to her, and then, without hesitation, he reached out to help her unbuckle the baby from the car seat. "Don't worry, I've got you," he said softly, his voice calm despite the whirlwind of thoughts racing through his mind. He moved quickly, but with care, holding the baby close as he guided her out of the car. The woman watched, still too shocked to speak, as the boy maneuvered around the snowdrift with surprising strength. Within moments, they were both out of the car and into the snow, the wind howling around them. The boy turned toward the mansion, where the heat from the house could provide safety. The baby's cries had softened into whimpers now, and the woman, still in a daze, followed him closely, her eyes wide with disbelief. The boy was no stranger to tough situations. Growing up in a neighborhood where every day felt like a battle, he had developed an ability to think quickly and act even faster. He wasn't one to freeze up in the face of uncertainty. Rather, he thrived in it. His instincts, honed by years of navigating a world that rarely seemed to offer second chances, were razor sharp. In moments of crisis, he didn't second-guess himself. He just acted. His family was everything to him. Though they didn't have much, the love they shared made up for it. raised by his mother, who worked tirelessly to keep the roof over their heads, and his older brother, who tried his best to set an example. The boy had learned early that family meant sacrifice. They had faced hardships, too many to count, but their perseverance had shaped him into someone who never gave up, even when the world seemed like it wanted to break him. Helping others had always felt natural to him. It wasn't just something he did. It was part of who he was. The sense of duty to others, especially those in need, had been instilled in him from an early age. On the other side of the street, a life of privilege and wealth seemed so far removed from his world. The millionaire had built his empire piece by piece, with sweat, strategy, and a sharp business acumen. At just 45, he was already at the pinnacle of success. Investments in tech and real estate had turned his life into one of luxury. He owned sprawling estates, drove the finest cars, and traveled the world on private jets. He was a man of numbers, of deadlines, and of high-powered meetings. His wealth allowed him to live a life few could dream of. But with all his riches came a distance from the realities of life outside the glass walls of his mansions and high-rise offices. Despite his career and the luxuries it afforded him, the millionaire had always prided himself on being a committed father. His baby girl was the one thing in the world that truly mattered to him. His wealth had allowed him to provide for her in ways that were unimaginable to most, but it had also isolated him from the challenges that regular people faced. He had done everything in his power to protect her, but nothing could have prepared him for the day when she would need saving in a way that money couldn't fix. The snowstorm that had led the boy to the millionaire's car that fateful afternoon would be the moment that changed both of their lives. Neither knew yet, but their paths were about to collide in the most unexpected way, forever altering the course of their futures. The boy didn't hesitate for a second. His feet crunched through the thick snow as he walked toward the stranded car. Each step felt heavier, the cold biting at his exposed skin, but his determination kept him moving. As he drew closer, the faint cries of a baby echoed through the howling wind. His heart raced, but he pushed the fear down. This was no time to be afraid. The luxury car sat stuck in the snowdrift, its wheels spinning helplessly as the woman inside, frantic and worried, tried desperately to free herself. The boy could see the baby, still strapped into her car seat, completely entangled in the snow. The car seat had sunk into the drift, its straps wedged under the weight of the snow. His first thought was to make sure the baby was safe. He quickly ran over, examining the car seat and the baby's fragile little body. The cold was unbearable, and the baby's face was flushed from the freezing temperatures, her body stiff from the chill. Without a second thought, the boy unbuckled the baby from her seat, his small hands working quickly and efficiently. With the baby now cradled in his arms, he wrapped her tightly in his coat, shielding her from the bitter cold. He wasn't sure if he was moving fast enough, but he wasn't going to stop. He found a nearby snowbank that provided some shelter from the wind and placed the baby down carefully, covering her with snow to keep her warm. But the woman, her face pale and her clothes soaked with snow, was still stuck, struggling to free herself. The boy turned around and rushed back to her side. He reached out, his hands gripping hers firmly, trying to pull her out of the snow. His muscles strained, his hands numb from the cold, but he wasn't about to leave her behind. He tugged and pulled, ignoring his own discomfort, until the woman was finally free from the snowbank. Both the woman and the baby were safe. The boy stepped back for a moment, catching his breath, his chest heaving from the exertion. The woman stood up shakily, her eyes wide with disbelief as she clutched her baby to her chest, her gratitude pouring out in soft, shaky words. "Thank you. Thank you so much," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "You've saved my baby. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." The boy simply nodded, his expression calm, but his mind racing. This wasn't a big deal to him. He had done what anyone would do, what anyone should do in this situation. But before he could turn away, the woman was already on the phone with her husband, calling him with urgent words that were barely coherent. "Honey, you won't believe this. There was a boy who saved our daughter. He got her out of the car and he pulled me from the snow. He saved us." Before the boy could make his exit, a car screeched to a halt just behind him. A man jumped out of the car, his face filled with panic and worry. It was the millionaire, his features softening with relief when he saw his wife and daughter standing there, unharmed. His gaze shifted to the boy, who was starting to walk away, his hands still shaking from the cold. The millionaire rushed over to him, his voice tense with gratitude. "Wait," the millionaire called out, stepping closer to the boy. "What's your name?" His eyes scanned the boy from head to toe. The boy's ragged jacket, worn boots, and small frame didn't fit the image of someone who could have saved his family's life. The millionaire could barely believe what he was hearing. The boy had saved his daughter, and he couldn't just walk away without knowing who he was. The boy turned back to face the man, his expression calm, but his nerves starting to show. He had no idea who this man was or why he cared, but he didn't expect anything in return. "I'm just a kid," he said simply. The millionaire's face softened. "You're more than just a kid," he said simply. The millionaire's face softened. "You're more than just a kid. You're a hero," he said, a catch in his throat. He turned to the woman, his eyes filled with gratitude. "We owe him everything." Then, turning back to the boy, the millionaire spoke again. "You saved my child. Whatever you need, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. No amount of money could repay you for this." The cold winter air bit at the boy's face as he trudged down the snowy street. His breath formed clouds of vapor in the crisp afternoon air, and the sound of crunching snow beneath his boots was the only noise that broke the stillness of the street. At 12 years old, he was used to navigating these winter streets, his clothes layered for warmth against the chill. He had learned to survive in difficult circumstances, helping his family however he could. His dreams of a brighter future never wavered, despite the hardships that constantly threatened to knock him off course. As he passed a large, luxurious mansion, the distant cry of a baby broke through the otherwise peaceful silence. The boy stopped in his tracks, his curiosity piqued. The cry echoed through the cold air, growing louder and more frantic with each passing second. He instinctively looked around, trying to locate the source of the distress. A luxury car, stuck in a snowdrift just off the road, caught his attention. The car's tires spun uselessly in the snow, the woman inside visibly struggling to free herself and her baby. Her frantic movements were evident as she tried to get out of the car, her cries muffled by the howling wind. The boy didn't think twice. He knew he had to act. The boy approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. Through the car window he saw the baby, still in her car seat. Her tiny face red from the cold, her body shaking from the freezing temperatures. The woman was trapped, her movements hampered by the snow, and her panicked voice echoed in his ears. Without hesitation, he moved into action. "Stay calm," he said, his voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline. The boy carefully unbuckled the baby from her seat, gently lifting her out of the car. He wrapped her in his own coat, shielding her from the worst of the cold, and rushed to a nearby snowbank to place her out of harm's way. The shelter of the snowbank was the only safe place in the immediate area. He returned to the woman, his small hands grasping hers to help pull her out of the snow. She was clearly shaken, but grateful. Together they made it to safety, both of them gasping for air in the biting cold. The boy did not want to linger. He had done what was necessary and planned to leave. But the woman, still in shock, was already on the phone, calling her husband. "Please hurry," she said. "There's a boy. He saved us. He saved our baby." Minutes later, a sleek black car pulled up, and a man stepped out. The millionaire, his face etched with concern, rushed toward them. His worried eyes scanned his wife and child, visibly relieved to find them unharmed. Then his gaze fell on the boy, standing quietly nearby, his hands still trembling from the cold. The millionaire approached him, his tone soft but urgent. "What's your name?" the millionaire asked, his voice filled with gratitude. The boy was hesitant at first, unsure of why this man, whose life seemed worlds apart from his own, would care, but he answered simply, "I'm just a kid. I saw you needed help." The millionaire's eyes softened. "You're not just a kid. You saved my family." He paused, clearly moved. "I can't thank you enough for what you did. I owe you more than words can express." The boy shrugged, trying to brush off the praise. But the millionaire, not willing to let the moment pass without showing his appreciation, made an unexpected offer. "I want to help you," the millionaire said. "You're an amazing young man, and I want to make sure you have the future you deserve." The millionaire's offer was nothing short of life-changing. He promised the boy a full scholarship to one of the best schools in the country, covering all his education and living expenses, and even offering mentorship for his future career. The boy's eyes widened in disbelief. This wasn't just a simple thank you. It was an opportunity to change the trajectory of his life forever. The millionaire's generous reward made headlines, spreading through the community and beyond. It sparked conversations about selflessness, bravery, and the power of a single act of kindness. The boy's quiet humility and the millionaire's generosity were celebrated, and the entire community marveled at the potential that lay ahead for the young boy. The boy's life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. From that snowy afternoon, where he had acted on pure instinct to help a stranger, to now, where he stood on the threshold of an entirely new future. The transformation was almost surreal. With the full scholarship offered by the millionaire, his dreams were no longer just aspirations. They were tangible goals within reach. No longer would he have to worry about where his next meal would come from, or how his family would scrape by. The weight of uncertainty that had once burdened him was now replaced with the hope of a brighter future. He moved to a new school, a prestigious institution that opened doors he'd only dreamed of. For the first time, he felt like he belonged, his intelligence and determination recognized for what they were. He excelled in his studies, his ambition growing with every new opportunity. He was no longer just a hard-working boy from a modest background. He was a young man with the world at his feet. And while the pressure to succeed was high, he had an inner strength now, an understanding that he could overcome anything if he kept pushing forward. But the impact of that day didn't stop with the boy. It rippled through his community, sparking something far greater than anyone had anticipated. His story was shared far and wide, serving as a testament to the power of kindness, bravery, and the difference one person could make. More and more people in the neighborhood began helping each other in small, often unseen ways. The boy's success became a symbol of what could happen when people took action, even in the face of adversity. His act of rescuing the millionaire's baby had set off a chain reaction of goodwill that breathed new life into the community. People started volunteering their time, mentoring others, and donating to causes that helped the less fortunate. The millionaire, too, felt a profound shift within himself. The experience had shaken him, made him reflect deeply on his life. He had always worked hard, striving for success in the business world, but he'd never fully understood the struggles of those less fortunate. He realized that his wealth, though hard-earned, also came with privileges that others could only dream of. The boy's selflessness had opened his eyes to how much he had taken for granted. Inspired by the boy's humility, the millionaire began speaking publicly about the importance of supporting underprivileged youth. He set up a foundation to help young people from low-income backgrounds receive scholarships, mentorship, and internship opportunities in the tech industry, just as the boy had received. The millionaire became an advocate for change, using his platform to challenge others to give back and to recognize the untapped potential in every person, regardless of their background. What had started as a chance encounter on a snowy day became a defining moment for both the boy and the millionaire. Through their unlikely connection, their lives had been forever altered. And as the boy's story continued to inspire others, the millionaire's own path was reshaped, too. Both of them now focused on a future where kindness, opportunity, and community were at the forefront of everything they did. The boy's transformation was nothing short of extraordinary. With every passing year, he not only excelled academically, but also thrived in extracurricular activities, discovering new passions and talents that had previously been out of reach. The scholarship had opened doors he never thought possible, and with each opportunity, he grew more confident, more driven. He gained the respect of his peers, many of whom had initially seen him as an underdog, and his mentors recognized the rare potential he possessed. The boy's journey from a humble background to academic and personal success was a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of seizing opportunities, and the incredible impact of one courageous act. As he graduated from college, the boy, now a young adult, felt it was time to return and thank the person who had made it all possible. The millionaire's home, once a distant and intimidating place, had become a symbol of everything he had worked for. He arrived at the mansion, now brimming with a sense of accomplishment. It was a far cry from the snow-covered street where their paths had first crossed, and yet it felt like destiny had always been steering them toward this moment. The millionaire greeted him warmly, just as he had done all those years ago, and they shared a quiet moment on the porch, overlooking the landscape. The boy, now a man, thanked the millionaire for believing in him when no one else had. The millionaire, in turn, expressed how deeply moved he had been by the boy's courage, and how that moment had shifted his perspective on life and wealth. They spoke of dreams, of purpose, and of how a single moment of bravery had changed both of their lives forever. "I never would have imagined that one small act of kindness would lead to all of this," the millionaire said, his voice filled with gratitude. The boy smiled, shaking his head. "Sometimes you don't know the impact you're having until it's too late. But what I've learned is that it's not about where you come from, but where you're willing to go. And sometimes all it takes is one moment to change your entire life. The two men stood in silence for a moment, both reflecting on how far they had come since that snowy day. The boy had found his path, and the millionaire had found a new purpose. Their shared experience had forged a bond that would last a lifetime, one that neither would forget.